This is Rudy Giuliani on America's Mayor Live, and here I am broadcasting on America's Mayor Live for the first time since the Gulf of America has been christened by the President of the United States on Sunday as he flew from, I guess, Palm Beach. Yeah, he probably left from here to go to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. As he was crossing over the former Gulf of, we will not say the name, he renamed it officially the Gulf of America. And I want you to see that on my map, it's been the Gulf of America since we were pointing out how close the Chinese are, since they are now in Cuba. And you can see that. You can see that red dot at the end there on the east coast of Florida. That red dot is Palm Beach. And then up there, you see New Orleans up sort of in the middle at the top. So it's a pretty short trip. Quite a beautiful trip, actually, even by car. You go along that panhandle there. There's some pretty places, Biloxi and Pensacola, Mobile. But of course, it should have always been the Gulf of America. Right? Yes. So the Panama Canal, we're starting to get now all the, we're starting to get all the contraries, that are coming out, and people going after, we were talking about that on the other show. We were on this one too, people going after Musk, and Musk is just trying to do what people have been promising to do. Waste, fraud, and abuse. Remember waste, fraud, and abuse? Well, there really is waste, fraud, and abuse. He's actually finding it. And he's only finding the tip of the iceberg. And they are going crazy, including Republicans. Oh, don't close USAID. There are some good programs. What are they? Well, yeah, like the program where they funded a ring that was engaged in kidnapping and trading girls. Oh, they put $9 million into that one. I got to go. Or the one in which they were caught with hundreds of thousands of dollars in kickbacks, including their employees. How about those in which half of the amount in the grant gets skimmed, otherwise known as stolen? Those all come from a report of Senator Joni Ernst, who believes you don't keep it alive when 80% of it is corrupt and 20% is doing a good job. You get rid of it, you take the 20% and put it under Rubio. Whereas, plus, it shouldn't be an independent agency anyway. I don't understand constitutionally how is there any right to exist. Well, a person I respect greatly has made some very strong arguments against what President Trump wants to do in the Panama Canal. And that is Mary Anastasia O'Grady. She is, for a long time, the very, very distinguished columnist in the Wall Street Journal, who is an expert on Latin America, South America, expert on a lot of things, but particularly that. She knows a hell of a lot more about South America than I do, or than any of the talking heads that shoot their mouths off about it. So here's her argument. That we would be marching on a weaker, law-abiding democracy. And she describes it in very strong language as Putinesque. In other words, Trump would be acting like Putin. And this was in today's Wall Street Journal. And she says that the argument that Americans are being ripped off at the Panama Canal is not true. That the Panama Canal Advisory Board, chaired by a U.S. Navy admiral, says that they're getting the right business price. She said that Trump exaggerated the number of deaths in the canal when we built it. Seems to me that that's a little bit off the point. Whether there were 30,000 or 5,000 or. In any event, we paid for it and owned it. I mean, we definitely owned it. And we gave it to him for $1. She doesn't mention that. Um, she does say that Senator Cruz gave a wrong impression when the Federal Maritime Commission Chairman Louis Sola asserted that ships going in and out of the cargo ports run by the Chinese Communist Hutchison Port Holdings block the traffic of the canal every single time. Former Panama Canal Authority Administrator Jorge Quijano told her that that's not true. I don't know. You got a Federal Maritime Commission guy from U.S., and then you have a Panamanian. That can't imagine why the Chinese Communists wouldn't block it occasionally. Panama has long struggled with corruption. She's right about that. And last week they decided to wind down their involvement in the China Belt and Road Initiative. Well, that's good. They never should have been involved in it in the first place. But that doesn't do anything about the canal. That has nothing to do with the canal. That has to do with the other relationships they were having with China. You don't think they were being bribed by China for that? Come on, Mary. The government is corrupt as hell. The last president's in jail. Are there any of the presidents that haven't been in jail or should have been in jail? And they don't take money? And if they do take money, China isn't the one most likely to bribe them? I mean, that's got like I'm surprised at you. That's a foregone conclusion that China is giving them money under the table, illegally. We call them bribes. You go to jail for that in a civilized country, not Panama. Yes. If you allow that kind of corruption, sorry, you're not really a civilized country. The Canal Authority has never been accused of corruption. More than 99% of Canal Authority employees are Panamanian. Well, Panama is uniformly corrupt. All the employees are Panamanian, but the canal's not corrupt. That'd be interesting. I guess when a Panamanian who is part of a systemically corrupt country gets on the canal territory, he becomes honest. That's very interesting. Well, and he says that she says anything we do there will support the left in Panama. Well, we've got Kara on the phone with us, Kara Castronova, who is the White House correspondent for Lindell TV for America's Mayor Live. And I wanted to ask Kara, how is this? Kara, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So nice to see you again.
How is it different now that they have this new press arrangement? Can you explain to people what it is, the new press arrangement?
Sure. Well, this new administration is being very transparent, and they believe it's important that not just mainstream media, but all media is able to access President Trump and ask questions to the press secretary. So a lot of alternate media stations are welcome now at the White House. There were, I think, tens of thousands of people that submitted media credentials.
Yes.
We were one of the ones that got accepted thanks to Rudy Giuliani and Mike Lindell and your popularity here at the White House. And, they really, really just want, obviously the fake news has not done a good job for the past decades in reporting the truth. So giving other outlets a chance to actually report the truth.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
I mean, that's really one of the things that he had to do. And this is one of the ways, that is to save the First Amendment, as you know, right?
Yes, of course.
So let me just call on you for a second for your earlier expertise. What's happening with the January 6th people? Because before I said two things are needed. We need accountability for the people who tortured them. And number two, they need compensation. But what's going on with them now?
Right now, there's still 6 J6ers in jail, so a lot of activists, including myself, are working to get them out, and the Department of Justice is aware of it. They're aware that judges are defying President Trump's executive order and trying to get those remaining 6 out of jail. There's a number of lawsuits going on right now, thank God, so that some of these people could be reimbursed for the, year. You can never really be, I don't think, reimbursed for 4 years of your life
Oh, of
or your
course.
con right, or your constitutional rights being completely violated. That's something I don't think that could ever be redeemed. But yes, I think that there's a lot of lawsuits, and hopefully there's some winning lawsuits out there where these people will finally, hopefully, get some justice. And one of the other things I'm hoping for justice, with Mr. Mayor, which I know was important to you, is Roseanne Boyland. Now that we have the DOJ,
Oh,
hopefully they will go after her killer.
yeah, I mean that has sort of been lost. Not that they not that they did much about any of the people. I mean, weren't there also two others who died as well? But I
There
guess
were there were there were 2 others as well. Maybe they'll investigate that. From what I understand, there we have some good friends now in the DOJ, some people who actually believe in justice. I think you belong in there, but we have some people in there now that are really fighting for justice. They're going after real criminals, and some of those real criminals might be some of the judges, hopefully down the line, that might be impeached. Elon Musk tweeted out today that we need to start impeaching judges, and I couldn't agree more because both you and I know just how lawless these judges were. So that's one of the things when I have some spare time and there's nothing going on here at the White House. I'm going to definitely be going down to the courthouses and hopefully, doing some reporting on the judiciary, which is
please, anytime.
beyond corrupt.
We very much want to. We very much want to hear that because I've personally, obviously, witnessed it with one judge, but
Yes.
everybody I talk to about January 6th tells me that when they were there during the trials, they didn't think they were in America anymore.
No, it was literally a kangaroo court. It felt like KGB or China. I was there. I reported on many of the different trials. That's why I have such a vendetta. That's not the right word because I'm a journalist, I guess. But I'm also a human being, and witnessing what I witnessed in those courtrooms was absolutely un-American, and I never want to see that happen again in America. And I think it's really important to make that to tell and let Elon Musk know, like you mentioned earlier, Elon Musk is like the new Rudy Giuliani and Steve Bannon. In 3 or 4 years, he could very well be a target of the judiciary. That's why we need to weed these judges out now. We need to weed out the Department of Justice, all the moles that are still in there, hiding out, hoping to get overlooked from getting fired. All of these people will come out of the woodwork when the power pendulum swings, and they certainly will go first after Elon Musk.
Well, that's really true. And Elon is right about the judges that have made some of these decisions. But the decisions he's talking about are mild in comparison to taking away somebody's liberty.
Right. And
Even in my case, where I feel I've been treated horribly, I feel
no,
they've been treated
definitely.
much worse because their liberty was taken away.
Of course, and I, found out from inside sources too, and I don't know if this is common knowledge, but Elon Musk was very much an advocate for the pardoning of the J6ers and making sure they got out of jail that night. So he's really on the side, I think, of justice, and he's very much
Yeah.
against weaponization and political persecution. So thank God we actually have a good billionaire on our side.
Well, thank you very much, Kara. It's so wonderful to have you, and great reporting and great
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
you look like you belong there.
Thank you. Thank you. I wish you were here with me.
We'll come down.
Thanks, Kara. Oh, we'll be down there. We'll be down there.
Looking forward to seeing you guys.
We can
soon.
come back to Washington now.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yes, we can. It's not occupied territory anymore. It's good.
Thank God. Well, that's true, but I do think I have to bring down a priest friend and throw holy water around and before we really go back. We did go back for the inauguration.
Mayor, can you imagine the White House now after the last 4 years?
Yeah, but I
The
don't know.
substances in the White House?
I gotta ask President Trump if what would you call it?
Disinfect?
De-satanize?
Detox.
Exercise?
Oh, you're right. A seance.
Every priest is ordained an exorcist.
Exorcist.
So there are 7 orders to becoming a priest. I don't know all. The first one is altar boy, acolyte. But right in the middle, like order 3 or 4, is exorcist. So you're ordained to drive out the devil. Then eventually the ones leading up to priest are subdeacon, deacon, and priest. And priest is the last one, and priest is the one that has all the sacramental authority attached to it. being able to give communion, penance, the last rites. Everyone can baptize. All Christians can baptize, not just priests. But in any event, every priest or even seminarian who got through that can drive out devils. Now, the most famous exorcism ever was done in Georgetown in the movie Exorcist. And I can show you the spot where the priest who finally did it had to sacrifice his life. So I think somebody should drive around Washington and get rid of all the devils before I go back. But in any event, I thought Kara was very eloquent on the January 6th situation, and we're going to stay right on top of that. I didn't realize that 6 are still in jail and that these miserable, dishonest judges are keeping them in jail. Now, I can't make I can't make a specific statement that any of these judges violated the criminal law. I can make the generalized statement it's worthy of investigation. When you go to the extent that they went to violate due process, you are therefore, I think, engaged in a criminal civil rights violation. And let's see how far they went. It really would be a question of how far they went. Did they knowingly deprive people of their rights as part of a scheme, as part of a conspiracy, as part of an agreement? How much were they brought into it? How much political contact did they have? It was, after all, Biden who pushed Attorney General Garpulkin. What's his name? Garpulkin, Garfield, Garland.
Merrick Garland.
Yeah, Merrick Garland, the most corrupt Attorney General in history, whose portrait should not be put in the Justice Department. And if they are, they should put it way down in the basement heading toward hell. But he was going slow on January 6th. And it was Biden who kicked him in the backside and said, I'm very disappointed in. And then they conducted the biggest investigation in American history. They spent more money than they spent on investigating the communists, on investigating the mafia, on investigating fentanyl, on investigating drugs, on investigating the cartels, on investigating you name it. More money was spent on those poor people that walked in there and didn't know what the hell they were doing, who didn't burn anything down like the people in Philadelphia burned down because they were all upset about winning the Super Bowl. We got to go back and look 2 years ago when they lost the Super Bowl, Chad.
Yeah, we were there.
But we weren't in Philadelphia.
No, we were at the golf course.
Yeah, but we weren't in Philadelphia.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
What did they do to Philadelphia then?
Yeah, let's get some video.
That may have been the year they had the most number of murders in their history. Maybe they just like plain out now just murdered more people.
Right.
And Chicago has occasionally had riots when they've won or lost in which they murdered people because they do it every weekend.
Right.
So it's just kind of like an extension of the weekend.
Yes.
We stopped covering how many people get shot and killed. We're going to go take a look at it, okay? I mean, the mayor they have now, it's really hard to say after having had Mayor de Blasio in New York, who is the worst mayor in history. I mean, it probably doesn't matter. But this guy is really, wow. So we were talking about Panama, and I laid out the arguments, but I didn't lay out the rebuttal to the arguments to the person. I really do respect her. I wonder if she would do a debate on this, because I'd love to do a debate on this. With all due respect, I don't think Mary Anastasia O'Grady really understands the depth, the commitment, the incredible talent of Chinese intelligence. It is 5 times better than Russian, and better than we've ever done in infiltrating. And when they can infiltrate a country like ours, which is until Biden was a tough country to infiltrate, but they did it. Imagine infiltrating a corrupt little country like this. I mean, a few bucks, and you own Panama. So just the mere presence of China in official positions there, I don't care, even if they weren't running the canal, if they were advisors to the canal, they shouldn't be there. The fact that the government was doing business with them is all you have to know, that it's got to be, let's talk exorcism, has to be exercised. They shouldn't be they shouldn't be anywhere near us. We should get rid of them in Cuba too. They are aiming to destroy us. If they can get us to destroy ourselves, that's what they're trying to do. If not, have you noticed, Mary, that they're got the biggest military increases in the world, that their Navy is larger than ours now? Do you listen to the threats they make? Remember, people didn't listen to the threats Hitler made. They didn't listen to the threats bin Laden made. So those of us who are responsible listen to these threats. And this is not just a part of the world. It's extraordinarily sensitive. And should you be wrong and their intentions are really what most of us think they are, then if anything happens, they can really jam us up. And they're awful close to us to be shooting at us too. So I would think if this government is pro-American, it would kick them the hell out now. Just kick them out. All of them. No Chinese involvement in the Panama Canal. We get to exercise our discretion with regard to that treaty. And please don't accuse Trump of being Putin-esque. Putin didn't go into Ukraine because Ukraine is a threat to him. He went into Ukraine because he wanted to acquire territory. Well, he thinks it belongs to him, I guess, right? He doesn't. It doesn't. So he went in there violently and took it. If we went in there, we'd be going in there to expel a mortal enemy that has already killed millions of our people. Either COVID, fentanyl, and killed 100 million of his own people. This isn't the presence of Germany or even the presence of even Venezuela moving over and taking over, although we'd have to throw them out too. These are maniacal, homicidal maniacs. Xi Jinping has killed more of his own people than any human being alive on earth. That company, you got to know this, right? That company, since they took over Hong Kong and they passed their what I call Submission Act, every company works for the CCP. The CCP is entitled to all their data, all their information, takes it, and if you think they don't have a complete hold on a company as important as the one running 2 locks of the Panama Canal, you're not the reporter I thought you were. So I don't know. I wouldn't count on Jorge Quijano to tell me that they don't block the canal, or these other people from Mexico that say that they don't really run anything. They run the 2 locks. At a moment's notice, they can close them. They work for the Chinese communists directly. So you might as well say, not the Hutchinson bullshit company here. This is CCP runs 2 locks. Can close them anytime it wants. And for their purposes, we'll do it. Should not be allowed. We did not give them the canal to allow our biggest enemy on earth to have even that much of it. And if it is necessary to use military force to get them out, then if you're the president of the United States, you damn well better do it or resign. Well, we'll be right back after that very. Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO,
You should know all Arabica beans. No Robusto. All Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's Coffee.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
You're back.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with you on America's Mayor live from Palm Beach. Birthright citizenship. I know that the court, who I don't think read law books anymore, but they read comic books and newspapers, they're all saying, you can't do it. You can't. The Constitution says if you were born in the United States, you're a citizen. Doesn't matter if your parents snuck in or just came over the border to get born here so they could scam. They could scam a citizenship and get in. That's perfectly okay. It says if you were born in the United States, you're a citizen of the United States, and you have more rights than people who are naturalized citizens who come here and go through the process and go through a legal process of being naturalized. But if you go through a totally dishonest process of sneaking in from Mexico for one day to have your kid born here, your kid's an American citizen. Okay, well, if it says that, it says that. But these judges, for the life of me, I cannot figure it out. And the analysis today by Chuck Cooper and Pete Patterson. Chuck Cooper is a former, I think, Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legal Counsel, and he is the founding partner of Cooper and Kirk, a Washington law firm. But Chuck is probably one of the 4 or 5 lawyers who most often has argued in front of the Supreme Court. So we're talking about a constitutional scholar of great note. I have said this to you numerous times, but I'm not a constitutional scholar of great note. I'd like to think I am, but he's got the credentials. I've argued once in front of the Supreme Court, and I got the highest mark in constitutional law at NYU. But aside from that, and I've argued in just about every federal court, it doesn't just say if you're born in the United States. It says if you are born in, now catch the rest of this, and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Okay, you would say anybody here is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, right?
Right.
Like anybody here that can be prosecuted in the United States. But that can't be what it means. And I'm going to tell you why. When you try to interpret a statute or a constitutional provision, the second sentence, a second phrase has to have some meaning other than the first. So anyone born in or in the United States is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States if all we're talking about is court jurisdiction. But they were obviously talking about something beyond court jurisdiction. They were talking about being a completely enveloped in the United States. Here's why. They didn't want to make the children of diplomats citizens. So if you're a foreign diplomat and your child is born here, your child is not a citizen of the United States. Now, that's easy if you have diplomatic immunity, because then you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, even judicially. But in fact, if you're a diplomat and your papers haven't been accepted yet, your child still isn't an American citizen. Now, you are subject to like, nobody else used to know this, but I took advantage of this as mayor. The UN is a criminal body, has been for a long time. By that, I mean, there are almost as many criminals as honest people there, and they are a scourge to New York. They commit enormous numbers of crimes, and they committed so many that I made them part of my weekly report, and we had a special strategy for cutting down on their crime and also to protect their women and children, because they don't only get involved in crimes and stealing money and not paying for things, they have an unusually large number of perverts. And New York City Police Department very often would have to break in while the ambassador from Boopa Boopa is beating the living daylights out of his wife. And then when you go to arrest him, he says he has diplomatic immunity. Now Rudy knew that a lot of people who say they have diplomatic immunity don't. First of all, they get lazy and they don't present their papers to the State Department and to the president. If they're not presented, you can have all the papers in the world. If they're not stamped, you can have all the papers in the world. I can put you in jail. About a third of them who would claim to have diplomatic immunity probably should have had it if they went through the process and said that it was unfair that I was prosecuting because they just didn't go through the process. I said, well, it was really actually more unfair that you were trying to kill your wife. I won that battle. Any one of those born in the United States would not have been a citizen of the United States. Give you another example. If a person who is a foreign citizen, while he's in the United States, they're all subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. An Italian citizen who doesn't become an American citizen, he's only here for 3 days. For those 3 days, he's subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, meaning the judicial jurisdiction. But is he subject to the full jurisdiction of the United States like a statute intends it? No, he's not. Because if that person goes overseas and does something wrong, even if it violates American law, he can't be prosecuted for it. Because he's not a citizen of the United States. He's not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States in the fullest sense. But you can be, because you are. Now, this was intended to make certain that slaves were citizens. No other purpose. This was not intended to allow con artists to come over, have their kids born here, and make them American citizens, and then use that as a device to bring an entire family in. There's no thought of that at all. This was to make certain that slaves who were born before emancipation and before the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, that they were citizens of the U.S. because they were born here. Because at the time they were born here, they weren't subject to the jurisdiction of anything else or anyone else but the U.S. So this is a good argument. I'm not going to tell you it's an absolutely winning argument, because there's an argument on the other side that when you have this kind of ambiguity, and if in fact we had the other interpretation consistently for a couple hundred years, you got to go with the other interpretation. On the other hand, you can say, well, that never really was interpreted quite that specifically. No one ever really did an exegesis on what exactly the word subject to the jurisdiction mean. What does that add to born? So 2 things you need. You got to be born in the United States. You got to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. What does that mean? One thing we know, it means something in addition to born. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. That's a rule of what you call statutory construction. So Chuck Cooper, as usual, one of our premier constitutional lawyers, makes an argument that the Trump argument is a lot stronger than it appears. And if it ever gets before a judge who reads, there could be a problem. And Trump may turn out to be able to deny these scam artists citizenship. Well, most of the United States was really, really hurt by the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Almost all over the United States, and particularly in states with a heavy presence of the National Teachers Union, math scores and reading scores are way down. In my former state of New York, they're way down, even though the amount of money spent on students is maybe 3 times what it was when I was the mayor, 3 times. And the scores are way down. And of course, we have the presence there of, I think, the first teachers union founded by the Communist Party, which it still is part of, I believe. And here, I would say there is one state that stands out, and that's the state of Louisiana. And it's one of the few states that improved above 20 pre-pandemic. And the state superintendent of education credits it to very simply going back to basics. All of you listening to this show, who I'm sure are well-educated people, either school or self-educated, you know what to do about education, right? You have to teach them how to read right away. That's most important. I mean, like, really read. And they went back, by the way, to phonetics to help in getting kids to read. Whereas a lot of the present Marxist education, you can pronounce a word any way you want, which you hear when these kids are talking. But that's not even a language if you can pronounce a word any way you want. Look, sometimes I have to say something in a foreign language. I just did it with Persian. I had them write it out phonetically for me. So I say it right. So I communicate it correctly. Words are important. If you want to be a successful adult, you have to understand the importance of words, which is reading and speaking and writing. So they began a program called, and by sometime between kindergarten and 3rd grade, you had to complete a course known as the Science of Reading, in which the teachers taught you how to read using phonics and phonemic awareness, which was the old way of doing it, sounding the word out. That's how I learned how to spell, sounding the word out. Doesn't always work, because sometimes there are aberrations in all languages where you sound it out and it should be pronounced one way and it's pronounced another. Or there are alternative pronunciations. Samuel Houston Street. Now, here's the big surprise. The student math scores are up too. They were in the top 5 in the country for math growth in Louisiana, because they actually teach kids how to count. Yeah, they don't tell them, you can go get your calculator out and use that. They say, how many Post-its how many Post-its do I have? 1, 2. 1, 2. Plus what? 1. That's 3. So now they get a verb, they get a picture of how math works, right? If you take 1, if you have 2 and you minus 1, how many you got there? 2. They don't teach that. I've talked to kids in their mid-20s who don't know how to do a division, a long division. When I show them the little that I used to do, right? They didn't know how to do it. They did not know how to do long division. You use the calculator. How the hell are they ever going to understand eventually trigonometry? Huh? And do you realize where that puts us with regard to other countries? When we're behind and well, first of all, if we're behind in reading, we're in deep trouble. But if we're also behind in science and math, and if you're behind in reading, it probably means you're behind in everything, because that's the basic, right? And then the way they keep it up, all throughout the year, the kids are given constant tests on literacy in reading, writing, and math. And it's reported, and they're given assessments to their parents. So they don't wait to the end of the year and say the kid failed. They tell you after a month, the kid's not doing well. The kid's not growing. 2 months not growing. So here's what we think you should do about it. And finally, they have ended social promotion. Man, I was fighting social promotion when I was mayor. Herman Badillo, my running mate, was the guy who started the program of ending social promotion. And what a battle with the communists and the teachers union on that one. Wow. And what's the use? The kid is in the 4th grade. He doesn't pass. You put him in the 5th grade. Now he doesn't pass. You put him in the 6th grade, 7th grade. 7th grade, he's at the 4th grade level. This is the kid that becomes a kid who can't work, or a kid who becomes a criminal or a drug addict. What do you do that for? What is it? I mean, is it because they're communists and they want to destroy the fabric of our country? Sometimes I think so. Not sometimes. I do believe it is. I don't know that all of them know it, because many, many people are just pawns of Marxist theory and Marxist execution. Also, bad teachers can't be fired. They fire bad teachers. And they have universal school choice. So if somebody doesn't like how the public schools are going, they can transfer the money to a private parochial charter school. In New York right now, there's a big story how the teachers union is destroying a charter school that's enormously successful. They have decided they need the space, so they're trying to wipe it out. And Adams and Hochul, both of whom know how important charter schools are too afraid to do a damn thing about it. And Hochul keeps a tight grip on the number of charter schools. I've forgotten what they are, but they're not terribly more than when Bloomberg left, even though they are so much more successful than the public schools, with the same students, the same demographics, the same assets and liabilities. In other words, in the charter schools, it's the same kids. And the people who want the charter schools most are the parents of the poor kids. Black parents, 70% in favor of choice. Black politicians, 95% against it. When's that going to stop? It's starting to, but it really should be a revolution, because nothing more important than your kids. Not politics, that's for sure. But Louisiana, God bless you. So you put on a great Super Bowl, except for the halftime show, and but that's not your fault. That's Wokey Goodell, who would have been much worse probably if somebody didn't sit on him. Did he get rid of that end racism sign that he used to have in the end zone? I think we should have the end racism sign in the end zone for people.
Was it for the? Did they have it during the Super Bowl?
For like end racism in Black Lives Matter, Al Sharpton, CNN,
Right.
Joe Biden saying America is systemically racist, that all white people are racist.
Right.
That's where they should end it, right?
So, oh, what a bold stance you're taking. Really going
Well,
on a limb.
the DEI industrial complex, though, wants to keep it going. They're making good money off that. You saw the houses that those Black Lives Matter founders are living in. So,
well, they're true communists. I mean, the Communist Party heads are all very rich. richest person. Well, Russia, I would not say is communist, but Putin lives on a czarist communist model. He's the richest man in Russia.
Right.
Xi Jinping is the richest man in China by far. I mean, there were times in which people thought that he was the richest man in the world. I don't think so. It's hard to compare those people to, but I mean, all these guys are rich. Castro was wealthy.
Well, if you count, all the assets of the country are basically at Putin's disposal. So if you
but I
look
mean,
at it that way,
they also put plenty of it in banks.
oh yeah, and artwork,
Yeah.
and rare art and
Like-
yachts. There's
like
a few
Biden
yachts
did,
in
and
Palm Beach.
Maybe somebody should go look at about time to go look at the foreign bank accounts and talk to the woman who has the accounts that the FBI never would talk to. Let's find out who in the FBI wouldn't talk to her, fire them and prosecute them.
Is that why they're stalling the Kash Patel nomination?
Oh, sure they are. They are so afraid of Kash Patel. It is pathetic. If they think Elon Musk is a problem, Elon Musk doesn't have subpoena power. Kash Patel, assuming he's working with a Justice Department that's an ally, and with Pam Bondi, it will be an absolute ally. He's got more power than anybody. I mean, you saw what they could do to us, right?
But we do
Well,
have
now
to
for
clean
the
up.
right reasons, we can do that to them.
Yep, and we have to clean that Justice Department up. I think that's one of our big
Oh.
goals.
Big head start, way ahead of everybody. State Department, but even before Bondi came in, the guy there whose name now escapes me, he was Trump's lawyer, did a great job of getting. I mean, they were complaining and moaning and whimpering, and all those Justice Department phonies. And I see that on the list. You got to look at the list of the people that Trump took the classifications away from as the possible list of people who get investigated, right?
Right.
I see Weissman's on that list.
Right.
He should be prosecuted for torturing Manafort.
Is Matthew Whitaker the name you were looking for?
Who?
Matthew Whitaker?
No, Matthew was the acting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we're going to take
Breaking news,
James
breaking
McHenry?
news, sorry.
breaking news. Yes, go ahead.
What do we got?
We have some. This is where we got to get ourselves a.
Yeah, we're going to have to do that tonight.
We got to get
We're
ourselves.
going to learn how
a-
to. I was thinking over the weekend. I actually started thinking about doing that, and then I got all caught up in the Super Bowl.
Breaking news. Our audience is going to love this one. Bragg is back. The Secretary of Defense just signed a memorandum reversing the name of Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg.
Now, what was wrong with? What was wrong? I never even knew they changed it. What was wrong with Fort Bragg? What did Bragg do?
That's a
Very, very good question. And of course, this is part of that kind of that DEI woke era. And I guess that was under. This is Fort Bragg, which is in North Carolina.
Yeah.
It was renamed Fort Liberty in 2022, and this was part of a
He could not
larger
have been-
effort to remove Confederate ties
Was Bragg
from
a
military
Confederate?
Yeah.
bases.
But so was the Democrat
Confederate
Party.
General Braxton
Oh, yeah.
Bragg.
So why not remove? Why can't? Shouldn't we remove the name Democrat Party? I mean, they had a lot to do more to do with slavery than this guy Bragg did.
Right.
He's just one guy.
Yeah, one guy, and apparently exactly. One general
It
who
was one guy who probably had a lot of good things that he did. But he had slaves or whatever, and he fought for what he thought was the right cause. It was wrong. On the other hand, the Democrat Party helped to keep slavery here much longer than it should have been. And then after we emancipated the slaves, they did the best they could to keep it as close to slavery as possible for another 100+ years. Remember, the Civil Rights Act passed because the Republicans voted for it. Johnson and Kennedy could not get a Democrat vote for the Civil Rights Act because Biden's friends, the Ku Klux Klan senators, were all Democrats. The Klan was all Democrat. And they want to get name sensitive? They got the worst name in American politics, Democrat. Not to mention the fact that they've been highly infiltrated by the communists since Wilson and hiding it. And now it's coming out. And we're suffering for it. It's a disgusting party. Its name should be changed. People are not necessarily disgusting. A lot of people are fooled. They should reorganize under a decent name without all of the horrible history of that. And plus, the party in the major cities of America is totally corrupt and completely run by criminals. for the benefit of criminals. It's now, I mean, I can't even keep count anymore. The last time I counted, 39 cop killers were released on parole since Andrew Cuomo, who wants to be mayor, passed legislation basically demanding that everybody gets parole. It's now 43 cop killers that are running around who got life sentences. The argument being you shouldn't have the death penalty because life imprisonment is worse if you kill a cop. Then please explain to me why these people spend millions and millions of dollars with all these left-wing kook organizations that raise money for them to find some technicality on which they're not going to be executed. Why don't they just, I mean, every once in a while you get a guy who says, okay, I'd rather be executed. But that's 1 out of 10. The other 9 fight like hell to stay alive because they know there are liberal swine in this country who will let them out. Like 43 cop killers since 2019 are running around New York or wherever else. Are you kidding me? And this guy, here he is. And this guy wants to be mayor. And he's winning. And he probably is going to win. He probably can beat Adams.
Well, more breaking news. We got to get our breaking news.
Everybody goes after him for killing the old people, where he's got a million excuses and who the hell knows. But the cop killers that are out are all his responsibility. What the hell would you elect a mayor for that's responsible for 43? And probably by the time he runs a mayor, there'll be 50 cop killers running around. Maybe they'll start a PAC for him, Cop Killers for Cuomo.
The Justice Department has officially dropped charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The mayor was charged with bribery, fraud, and other counts. And now the Justice Department is ordering that the charges against him be dismissed. Of course, this is federal charges. Acting U.S. Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove.
That's who I was thinking about.
Yes.
Ordered
Boy,
federal.
this guy's got to get the Justice Department Attorney of the Year award.
Hey, we got a lot of Justice Department to go with the year.
I know, but he got off to a good start.
Right.
Nothing better than a good start.
Right,
Yes.
absolutely. So the Justice Department, acting U.S. Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove has ordered federal prosecutors in New York to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. A senior Justice Department official said Monday evening. The order is for all charges against Adams to be dismissed, and the dismissal is without prejudice, the official said, meaning charges could be refiled in the future.
Well, that's fair. I mean, the reality is I didn't go too far into analyzing that case because I'm going to tell you how I'm going to take you back. I don't know how many years when I ran that office, right? With more prosecutions than it ever had, ever in history. I would have looked at that case. This is a bullshit case. Like I did a case on Chuck Schumer. That's a bullshit case. The Chuck Schumer case actually was more than that. I was in the Justice Department, the U.S. Attorney in Eastern District, and I overturned it because I thought it was a bullshit case, and it was. I didn't believe that you prosecute people by surprise. There had been a change in the law, which he very well might not have been aware of, and it wasn't much of anything anyway. I mean, basically, the case against Adams is the following: if you believe the witnesses, right? He got upgrades on flights on Turkish Airways. They say in return for urging the buildings department, I think, to expedite a building permit. Well, first of all, you're supposed to expedite a building. Mayors are supposed to urge the buildings department to expedite. If you don't urge the buildings department to expedite, it won't get built for 450 years. I mean, and the buildings department, every 3 years, they indict 50 people there. In fact, I was very, very sure that when I was mayor, buildings department would be straight as hell. I had 2 rounds when I was U.S. attorney of prosecuting probably 50, 60 people in the New York City buildings under Ed Koch. And I said to myself, I become mayor. They're going to be so scared of me. And my commissioner of investigation was one of the very, very best assistant U.S. attorneys that I had, Howard Wilson, who was head of the civil division in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and a great lawyer, great private lawyer also. Howard, after a year or so, maybe a year and a half, said, "Mayor, I want to tell you this. Got to give you this bad news." I said, "Well, what is it, Howard?" He said, "Well, they're going to be very embarrassed, but we caught about 30 of your buildings department people taking bribes." Oh my God, what do you got to do to stop these people? And the reason for that, let me tell you this, and I won't go into much more detail about it because it isn't the point for today, but corruption in New York is systemic right now. And here's the one that really should be wiped out. It's systemic in the judiciary, as it is in the District of Columbia when we were talking to Kara before. Somebody should investigate the judges in New York who were appointed by the Democrat county leaders and the shit they do as a result of that. Just the 2 cases with Trump would tell you they're crooked. I could show you my case if you want. I mean, my disbarment, completely phony. In front of a hearing officer that was a former Supreme Court justice, appointed to the bench by the Brooklyn Democratic boss. Need I say more? If she had ruled for me, she wouldn't get another receivership. She wouldn't earn a penny, and she wouldn't be able to, hang out with her old pals who also got appointed by the Brooklyn Democratic boss. You can't fool me. Microsoft. Now we talk about the Chinese Communist Party and their unbelievable ability to infiltrate. And I said in my disputing what Mary Anastasia O'Grady had to say about, China's presence there really doesn't mean anything. Like hell it doesn't. Microsoft's presence in China, which has been criticized by many, now is believed to be responsible if China does have a lead in computing and the speed of it, and with DeepSeek. It's mostly Microsoft engineers who have trained at Microsoft who led that effort. So this was all stolen from us. Don't get insulted. This is not an ethnic slur. This is a product of communism. I don't know if in the old days before communism, China was a particularly creative country or not. I don't know Chinese history well enough to tell you that. But China is a totally non-creative country. They can't create a damn thing. Largely because their educational system, which is in some ways better than ours for the basics, only teaches rote memorization because they don't want people to think. If you thought independently, you'd rise up and overthrow Xi Jinping. You would not allow somebody to be head of your country who's killed your own people more than anyone else. So they can't let people they can't let people have a liberal education, questioning doctrines and questioning ideas. And despite Fauci's "I am science," science is as much debate as politics is. And that's how they arrive at eventually a solid scientific principle that may even change after 100 years. So what country would you think leads in creativity? There's no question about it in the history of the world. A country like ours that to a fault used to encourage free thinking, almost to a fault. But the benefit of it is we got people and then you see this debate with Vivek and Elon about people, coming over, et cetera. That's true. I mean, but we do that. We do allow people to come here, but when they come here, we give them a platform in which to invent, a platform in which to be creative, a platform in which to be rebellious about ideas. And that's why I don't think you're going to find a society over the last 150 years that's been more creative than ours. nor are you going to find a society that's been more horribly infiltrated than ours by the Chinese communists. They're everywhere. They're crawling up your sleeve. And they've stolen all this from us. Now, what that means, the only benefit we get from that is we can leapfrog them I shouldn't say pretty easily, but all the elements are there to leapfrog them. If you put in the money, the time, the effort, and the dedication, it'll happen. It'll just happen. And we got a president, and here's where Musk is terrific. I mean, he can do things in space they can't. I mean, the government can't, and Russia can't, and China can't. So will you leave this guy alone? I don't know how much free speech we'd have in this country if it wasn't for him. He's not a politician. He doesn't express himself the way a politician should. Thank God. It reminds me so much of Trump, the whole situation with Trump, except in a different way. But Microsoft, will you get the hell out of China? Every day you're there, they're learning something. Get out of China. You're rich enough. I mean, how much more money are you going to make? Anyway, China at some point, financially, economically, I believe is going to friggin' fall apart. They've got roughly half their population in a level of poverty that you couldn't even think about. So when you consider China, you got to consider that there's one government. They claim, there's one China, right? Okay, yeah, there is one China. There's the developed China, and there's the fourth world China. I say fourth world because it's poorer than a lot of third world countries. Now, you want to blend that together and tell me how strong their economy is, then you can understand their economy is a lot weaker than it appears to be. But they don't blend, they just forget that part. And then they give you whatever numbers they want. How the hell do we know if they're right? So if we can be disciplined, I mean, if we can get them the hell out of our drawers, right? If we can go back to a country that used to do a pretty damn good job of catching spies and getting rid of spies. I mean, Biden, first thing he came in office, get rid of the special unit that did that. You need any more of an indication that he was purchased by them? Yeah, he gave up Bagram Air Base. That's another indication. Or he didn't do anything about the fact that they killed over 1 million of us with COVID. Lousy bastard. That should be on his gravestone. Not lousy bastard, but he allowed more Americans to die than any president in peacetime. Should have been prosecuted 40 times. But multiple employees of DeepSeek work for Microsoft. So when you see the Chinese make these advances that they jump up and down about and end up crushing a market or something, they all trace back to us, which means that whatever advance they made, we're still doing it. We can get there very quickly and go beyond. Now, it's not going to do us much good if we go beyond and we're sharing it with them. And that's where Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and an FBI that goes after them rather than me or Trump or our people who are innocent but have a different political philosophy, or stops going after Catholics. If they start going after them, maybe we could tighten this up. FBI used to be pretty damn good at that. Not pretty damn good. They were terrific at it. That's how that's the first reason for having the FISA court. And I was there when it was put together. And I used to do Russian intelligence. That's when we were honest. And the courts were honest. So here's a great piece of legislation that's been around about a week. And I wasn't aware of it, and I'm upset that I wasn't. It's the Combating the Lies of Authoritarians in School Systems Act, the Class Act. I think they make up these names so it all works out right. Like the Class Act. It's like a long Combating the Lies of Authoritarians in School Systems Act, the Class Act. It was introduced on February 5th by Congressman Dave Joyce and Michael Rulli, both from Ohio. Will you both make it a mission to try to get them on?
Right, yes.
This is a great piece of
Legislation.
legislation. You know what it is? It is to kick China out of our schools.
We like that.
No money from China. There never would have been a tampon Tim if that had been the case, because he was living off money from China for 30 years. Can you believe that? So if that becomes the law, if you take money from a foreign government of any kind, even a teeny bit, you got to report it. You got to say where it's coming from. According to their report, Beijing is sponsoring and staffing many K-12 classrooms in the United States through a culture and language program called Confucius Classrooms, which are affiliates of Confucius Institutes, which is part of the the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. It's really part of China's soft power effort to undermine the United States. And it's been going on for a very long time. And they have a great ally in the Teachers Union, which was founded by communists and continues to be. However, this report concludes, Confucius classroom funding comes with strings attached that compromise academic freedom. The Chinese government approves the teachers, the events, and the speakers, and requires teachers to sign contracts, pledging they will not damage the national interests of China. And these arrangements are very rarely disclosed to parents. You know what's happening in the left-wing Democrat cities, because all of them either are communists or don't really care or are brainwashed, or their desire for political power means that they're just going to overlook it. So there is a report you may want to look at from Nicole Neely, president of Parents Defending Education. And it's entitled, you can get it online, Little Red Classrooms, China's Infiltration of American K through 12 Schools. Now, they identified 143 districts in 34 states, peculiarly many near military bases. Now this is another fact, right? You put that together with the fact that they acquire property around our military bases. And you remember the big balloon that Comrade Biden allowed them got an escort to all the bases so that they could take whatever pictures they wanted, the Chinese communists. And then once those were securely given to his paymaster, Xi Jinping, and over the Atlantic, he destroyed the balloon. But they already had all their pictures. He let them float over the United States for days, lying to us. That's how they operate. And then what they do is they change our history. Our students never learn about Tiananmen Square. They don't learn about Taiwan. They don't learn about the Uyghur genocide. They don't learn about taking the body parts of the Falun Gong. Don't learn about any of that. They don't learn about the fact that the Chinese communist system has killed more people than any other ideology in history that we know of, more than the Nazis, more than the Russian communists. 100 million. I mean, they got a lot of people to go, but that's a hell of a number. And the guy who's killed more of his own people in the world right now is Xi Jinping. And no one wonders, wasn't it a little strange that he got a hero's welcome in Democrat, left-wing, pro-China San Francisco? So I got to catch up on the hostages that have been released, Ted. So the last group was Eli Sharabi. His brother, he was paraded around by the terrorists, which is a violation of international law right off the bat. which is the reason why we should defund the ICC and we should prosecute the ICC as a terrorist organization, International Criminal Court, because they aid and abet terrorists, particularly in their prosecution of Bibi Netanyahu and the defense minister of Israel, who have done more to combat terrorism than anyone since Donald Trump. Certainly more than anybody in America in that period of time. But Sharabi was let free after they made quite a spectacle of it. And then he finds out that they had to release 183 Palestinians from prison for him and two others, who were all had terrorism convictions. 18 of them had life sentences. Also, the Palestinian Authority has paid a total of $141,837,087 to the 734 terrorists that are scheduled for release, which is described by sensible people as the pay for slay program. I mean, I don't get this. These people are in Israeli prisons and they're getting paid because they killed Jews or killed Americans or killed somebody. And how does it make sense to release 183 Palestinian for 3 Israelis? I understand it. I understand the value of every life. Here's what I question. If you value life, aren't you creating more loss of human life by following this process of giving in, of negotiating with terrorists? I know it is very, very hard to do. I did kidnapping cases. I saw them up close and I understand it. And if it was my child, I might be speaking differently, but then I shouldn't be in government authority. The person in authority has got to think for the good of the whole, not the emotional needs of 1 or 2 or 3 people, right? I just don't think you should negotiate with terrorists. I think you'll lose unbelievably more life by doing that. And you make kidnapping and hostage taking very valuable, particularly for a group that you have outmanned, outmaneuvered, who you can defeat militarily like pretty easily, as the Israelis can do. But all of a sudden, the Israelis capture 700 of their worst killers and then have to recycle them. I mean, they're going to stick back in Gaza 183 killers for 3 Israelis. And by the way, one of these guys had his family killed, and he gets notified of that when he gets out. And what about the Bibas family? 2 babies were killed. I mean, these are animals. You can't negotiate with animals. You have to kill them. That type of animal. I don't mean rabid animals, insane animals. And I don't understand. We got to look into this more. How did they pay 140, rounded off, 142 million to 734 terrorists who are scheduled for release? That's nearly a 200,000 apiece. How did they do that? Do they put it in a bank for them in Gaza, or why don't we seize that as the proceeds of terrorism? They are a terrorist. Hamas is a terrorist organization. That 141 million, we could give it to Elon Musk to use for, or we could give it to Israel to take care of the families how about the families that lost their children? How about we give them some of that money? Why isn't that money seized as the proceeds of terrorism? Hamas is back again as a terrorist group. Biden had taken them off, put them back, taken them off. I don't know. I'm sure they're a terrorist group now. And yet many governments of the world want the Palestinian Authority to take over Palestine, and they pay money to terrorists. This isn't Hamas doing it, it's the Palestinian government doing it. And they're going crazy on Trump saying we should take over there. We're going to let them take over. Well, if they take over, they may make all the terrorists millionaires.
You know, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of our own U.S. federal government dollars that are being stolen somehow made its way into the pockets of some of these.
100% positive it has.
Yes.
And that's exactly why Arafat never wanted to end the war, because if he ended the war, the flow of money would have stopped. And all of this concern about humanitarian money, we need more money for humanitarian needs. Humanitarian needs are for the terrorists. The people don't get anything. You see how poor they are.
Yeah, all that. I mean,
For a long time, right? Most of that money was going towards their tunnel construction and to kind of enhance and reinforce the terrorist fighting elements.
So I think that the president sounded to me like today he had it. Do we have that clip of him basically saying on Saturday, I want them all out or else? Because I think or else is even more powerful than when he said we'll hit them in a way that they have never seen before. It really conveys that all options are open and he intends to do something that wakes everybody up. I mean, with one act, he could really scare the shit out of them all. You know what I would do? Curveball. If they don't. See if that. Yeah. Maybe you better.
something
Well, I don't think the president of the United States could have been clearer, huh? So we'll see. These people, are, I don't know if they have their heads screwed on straight. We'll find out. But, so do you want my idea of what he should do?
Yeah.
I believe in throwing curveballs. He should take out the Iranian nuclear facilities, not even bother about Gaza. Iran's behind the whole thing. It was Barzini all along. You Godfather fans will know what I mean by that. So go get Barzini. Not the stupid little, the Tartaglia brothers were too stupid to outfight Santino. It was Barzini all along. Well, the Palestinian Authority, the Hamas, the Hezbollah. After we take out all of their nuclear facilities, we could do a couple of practice runs down to Yemen and take out the Houthis and just eliminate them from the face of the earth so they stop attacking shipping in the Red Sea. Right. And then the next thing we should do is to say to Panama, get the Chinese out, or we will come in and get them out. Out, gone, and don't listen to that wonderful columnist, Ms. O'Grady, because she's great on South America, but she's really for shit on China. She somehow doesn't understand how. Look, I still believe the Bible has all the wisdom in the world. However, the Godfather for this, some of this blood and gut stuff is pretty damn good, right? Now, I am surprised the Godfather didn't know until that day that it was Barzini, because we know that it's Iran, but we also know that in some very, very perverse way, Obama and Biden are tied to Iran. I'd really like to know the answer to that completely. I get, and I now buy completely all of the things about Obama being trained as a communist and being put there to move our country toward communism, because he sure did. I buy the fact that they took a puppet moron in his best days, demented in his worst days, and they just manipulated him, and we moved even closer to communism. I got that. But how does this religious maniacal dictatorship that has killed scores of Americans, held hostages, how do we end up being the country that gives them the most money when Obama and Biden are in office? What's that about? I really would like to know the answer. I've gotten answers to it, never gotten one that satisfies me. I understand completely why Biden gave away Bagram Air Base. I know specifically of 31 million reasons why Biden did that. Now, did he get money from Iran? I don't know. Is it Obama's Islamic extremist orientation? But even that wouldn't take you to the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah is bin Laden in charge of a country. You don't give bin Laden hundreds of millions in cash. Obama did that. Not bin Laden, but the Ayatollah. And none of our press has any interest in trying to find out why. And our Justice Department has never had any interest in prosecuting him for it, even though it's straight out money laundering or assisting terrorists. You can't give millions of dollars to a known terrorist. I don't care if you're the President of the United States or the Pope. You can't do it. I understand the softness with communism, even the sellout to communism. I can see it. I can see it, how it developed over 130, 140 years. I do not understand this situation with Iran, however. Eventually it'll come out, and eventually we'll figure it out, because we're a hell of a lot smarter than they are, but it can take a lot more work. So there are 76 hostages remaining, the Israelis believe. So that's the number that President Trump is talking about, unless some were released since this morning. And there are 30 believed dead. Wow. So what does that mean? That means there are 46, right? To be returned alive, and 30 bodies. This is a terrible situation. And don't you just feel so proud when you see the President of the United States? I don't care if it's Trump or just straight out stand up for the right thing. Like, release those hostages, or we're going to kick the living daylights out of you. Of course. And I really do believe if he were in office, there's a better than 50-50 chance. Well, first of all, I don't think it would happen. And I mean, Putin basically said that already. But in any event, I don't think it would have happened. But if it did happen, I have no doubt that he and Pete Hegseth would have tried a mission. I mean, even Carter tried. He failed, but he tried. I think they would have tried a mission. And, I don't know how much of this they put out or how much they don't. So I'm not going to give you statistics, but I'm going to find out. The President of the United States could probably make a good case that we have a better chance of saving lives by trying an extraction than we do by negotiating with terrorists. Now, look how many, when this is finished, let's look at how many died by waiting. And let's calculate what the odds are that we would have been able to extract at least as many. A combination of us and the Israelis. It happens to be, one of the things we're the best at, which we can be very proud of. This extraction thing we learned from the Israelis. Netanyahu's brother lost his life at Entebbe doing this, but he saved all the hostages. Bibi himself participated in missions like this. The Israelis sort of began it, and they used it in the Olympics, remember? But we learned it, and we really, really don't get upset, Israelis. We've passed them. I would say when I'm told this by special forces that now we're the best in the world, I believe it. I mean, after all, we have more people and more resources than Israel. So if we want to put our mind to it, we're going to take what they did and make it even better. So how about the combination of both of us going in there and trying to take these people out? I know it was difficult. They were in, I guess we don't know if they were all in the ground or not. I mean, some were, some weren't. And they did spread them around. So there was not like one mission that you could try. But you could have tried what Trump is doing right now. And, we held Bibi back a great deal from really leveling Gaza in a couple of days. First of all, we stopped him from going in for 2 weeks. Then every time he was having success, we were fighting for ceasefires and counting the civilians that died, even though they were considerably less than any of our wars. And even though we were playing into the hands of the Palestinians who put the civilians right out there to be killed. Imagine if we had said, okay, at the very beginning, you got 5 days to release the hostages. And on the 6th day, there will no longer be a Gaza. Nobody will be alive. It'll be like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Maybe not nuclear weapons, but it's going to be gone. For us to come in, clean it up, take it over, and make it a resort. Now, you want that or not? And by the way, we have posted the entire army of Israel with the help of the United States on your border, so you can't get out. You're going to be there. And if we have to lose our people, you're going to lose. You're going to lose everybody. Because that's how much the lives of our people mean to us. Not to release 1,000 of your criminals so you can come and kill us again for one of us. But we're going to kill all of you if you don't release the children that you have. And yes, we'll sacrifice the children, but we'll have no other children killed by you because you won't be around. I think it would have worked. Oh, one other thing. And just for good measure, Iran, since we know you're behind it, we can do 2 things at once. We're going to level whatever the hell we want there and leave it open that we might put something on the Ayatollah's head, like in Tehran. What do we have this power for if we don't use it for good? But this is where we are now. And that was a perfect decision by the president. About time. We cut the shit. They release him or we destroy him. Didn't you guys have the impression that this whole reaction to Trump this time around was less significant?
What's that?
They don't pay attention to me.
Oh, just producing your show from the sidelines here.
This is a bad classroom. Okay, boys, pay attention. I have a question. We all have been saying to ourselves that the reaction to Trump's victory this time was a lot more muted in terms of the crazy lefties, right?
Oh yeah.
They
Yes.
didn't have the safety room. What do they call those rooms?
Safe space.
Safe space in the schools. People would get free psychiatric help, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's an article today that liberals are taking Trump derangement syndromes to a whole new level, according to one doctor. And this doctor, I guess, was being interviewed by Mark Halperin. His name is Glenn Burnett from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It's been extremely intense the last week or two after the election was pretty intense. It then calmed down, and now it's really back up, he said to Mark Halperin. We're dealing with depression, anxiety, all kinds of medical problems that are related to like insomnia, chest pain, chest pressure. And then some people, there's some genuine fear and panic. They're experiencing very, very severe anxieties about what is going to happen to them. And it is affecting their lives. So what are the main things that they're upset about? Well, they're upset about the deportation of illegal immigrants, eliminating progressive favorites such as diversity, equity, inclusion programs, and transgender rights, or the right to mutilate would actually be, while putting a buzzsaw to federal agencies like the USAID. He said it's a very, very bad outbreak of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. I've been a physician for 30 years. I've never seen this happen before.
Wait, quick question.
I mean, to this level.
Are his patients either government bureaucrats, illegal immigrants, or perhaps people stealing from the federal government? I think that might be a reason that some people are reacting.
He's an
that way.
internist in the unlikely state of Wyoming, but maybe he's a Mary. Maybe he's, I always call him Mary Cheney, Liz Cheney's doctor. He's an internist, and he practices medicine in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Well, you got a lot of billionaires, a lot of like World Economic Forum grift going on.
You think maybe they came back from the World Economic Forum and they were traumatized by Trump?
I think that a lot of them probably make their billions off of different,
one of the things I would say is these people wouldn't make very good soldiers, would they, if they get traumatized by stuff like this?
Oh no, but I will still maintain that in 2016 it was far worse, far worse.
Yeah.
They burned DC to the ground.
Come on, I could feel it on the streets.
Yeah,
you could feel it on the streets. You could feel people would come up to you. Nobody comes up to me now. In fact, most people come up. I haven't found a person that isn't happy about his election.
Right.
I mean, including particularly black people and minorities. Holy God.
Right. And
I can't believe this is true because we, first of all, we don't hear about the schools. The schools had a lot of the schools, particularly in the Democratic cities, were bringing in all kinds of psychiatrists. One of my clients, the school she was in, they had safe rooms,
safe spaces,
and the kids could take. I mean, of course, the kids would take all day off.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have. If
exactly.
If the nun said to me, "You can go to a safe space today. You don't have to listen to history or math or." I've gone to safe space with Alan Parker and Peter Powers, and we created hell. Who knows what we would have done? We'd roll the bowling ball down. One time we rolled the bowling ball down the aisle to trip the brother. And then the brother.
Did he trip?
Brother knew exactly who did it. He went and just pretty much beat him up. One time we got a brother so upset that he literally took the kid and put him near the windowsill and said, "I'm going to throw him out." And the classroom yelled, "Throw him out." We got to get Placker on here to tell you these stories. This was an all boys school, scholarship high school. So they were all very, very bright, very challenging. So they weren't bored. I mean, the education was challenging, but everybody wanted to be a wise ass and everybody wanted to be the funniest guy in class. And we all feared, we didn't fear the discipline too much. And we didn't even fear the getting hit. We feared being expelled, though. Wow. Then you see kids cry. If they went so far that you're going to be expelled.
Maybe that's the source of some of our creativity in our schools, right? The ability to mess around a little bit. This one I was not a part of. I guess I wasn't smart enough, but we really had a kid, and Alan knows this story really well, and he rigged the bell.
So the
That's
class,
genius.
So the classes were shorter. So like the class was like 50 minutes or 45 minutes, right? He cut it down like 5 minutes. And the whole day was
That's
and
meaningful.
It took about 3/4 of the day for the principal and the assistant to figure out what's going on.
Well, Mayor, you didn't have to deal with the nuns. My dad tells me about the nuns.
The nuns were much worse.
And that's what he says.
They would
worse
beat
than the brother.
They didn't care.
They'd have the ruler. My dad said back
And it was
back in the day when, teachers could discipline students.
Oh, ruler. How about the knuckles?
Yeah. Now,
this one? Because they were like some of them were like just little women, right?
Right.
But they take their knuckle and go like this, boom, on the top of your head.
But even when Stephen and I were in school, we were still afraid of the teacher going to our parents and telling us. But nowadays, it's almost like students run to their parents and the teacher gets in trouble.
Any kid in my high school or even grammar school was nuns, high school with the Christian Brothers. Any kid in class would have taken any beating at all, but don't tell mom and dad.
Yes.
That's for me.
Yeah.
That was the case.
I would never,
Yeah.
in a million years, even there were times in which I was unfairly accused and beaten, or not beaten, hit.
Right.
But there were so many times I wasn't. I felt no injustice at all.
Yeah.
And even if I felt injustice, I could tell my friends, not my mother and father,
right?
Because they wouldn't believe me.
Right. Well, or they
I'd have gone home and said, Sister Mary hit me, and they'd say, yeah, and you deserve it.
And you, yeah,
bam.
Yeah, and then you'd get disciplined again.
Now let's go see Sister Mary so we can straighten this out.
Right. Very different now with a lot of kids, right? Where now the student goes home and complains to mom and dad about what happened to the school, and then the parents want to sue. They want to get the teacher in trouble. Very different. And I was just in school 15 years ago.
Is it possible that the teachers are more screwed up now too?
Well, there we go. That's unfortunately another thing, right? That's another angle to examine. I mean, I'm thinking.
I don't know. I mean, I'm getting tired of this. You know how I got tired of most of the FBI are really good and da 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 da. So I'm sorry. I love you guys and women in the FBI, but those of you who stood by while they arrested. The white, Papadopoulos and Roger Stone, particularly Roger Stone. You saw CNN there. So now immediately your boss is corrupt, right? Man, that's a violation of federal law to tip people off about an arrest. So you know that maybe your boss has committed a worse crime than this guy's accused of. Second, you see people dressed up like we're fighting in Afghanistan. When the hell did the FBI ever start with machine guns and military uniforms? And because I arrested organized crime people without that. The pistol was enough. The automatic weapon was enough. Oh, maybe if it were terrorists, maybe. I just don't remember the FBI agents not being in suits. Like this. J. Edgar Hoover would kill you if you weren't in a suit. All of a sudden, you're dressed up like maybe our special forces, maybe they're Gestapo. I don't know what you look like. You sure hell didn't look like FBI agents. You'd scare the shit out of the poor guy's kids. And what's he being accused of? Lying to Congress? Explain to me who put the leg irons on Navarro. I don't think I ever witnessed anybody I prosecuted, arrested, and put in leg irons. And I used to do, I was accused of beginning the perp walk in order to deter people. Yeah, but they were in handcuffs. They weren't in leg irons, and the police were dressed like police, and the FBI agents were dressed like lawyers. I didn't have the American military out there or the special forces or something that looks like the secret police. So if you participated in that, I don't know what should happen to you. I really think there's a real question of whether you have the moral independence to be a federal law enforcement officer. You should be able to resist illegal orders. You should be able to, at least at a minimum after it's over, to go lodge a complaint that the CNN was tipped off and therefore was able to film an arrest on national television. And all of you should have gone in that participated in that. You also, it seems to me, if I were an FBI agent and you told me to put on a military uniform to arrest a white collar criminal, I'd tell you to go to hell. And maybe I'd get fired. So what? I'd have my conscience. I mean, maybe it isn't the same thing, but I think I've done that. I think I proved I can do that. I think a lot of people have proved they can do that. Why couldn't you do that? And you got great power. You don't have any moral judgment and you have great power. That's extremely dangerous. So I used to think it was just at the highest levels. Then I thought, well, spread out a little more. But now I think it's a little bit more in the field offices. You did a lot of shit you shouldn't have done. If you are somebody with morality, a lot, and particularly about January 6th. Come on. Look at that Sharman guy. I mean, they escorted him all around the place. They were laughing. They opened the door for him. Opened the door to the chamber. Went and got the key to let him in. And you don't say to yourself, what the hell are we prosecuting this guy for? What kind of jerk-off prosecution is this? You don't read about the hard drive and how your boss hid it for 17 months? I don't know. I think there's more. How does it get back to teachers? More teachers than just a few are responsible for the condition of the teachers' union. You shouldn't belong to a communist union. Sorry. And you shouldn't belong to a union that really is the single organization, probably the organization, aside from the Communist Party, that's done the most damage to our children in America. There's no organization that has done more damage to American children. And it's not just in the big decision of an extra year of no school. And then you look at the performance of the kids in private and parochial schools, and you compare it to the poor kids that went to schools run by the Communist Teachers Union. And you see the damage they did to those children. Why are you paying money to that organization? Don't you have your own moral responsibility to stand up for something? That's how they eventually got us, right? They got us because they could frighten us. But lots of people said, I can't represent Trump. I'll get fired. I can't. Oh my God, I'll get fired. I'll lose my job, my kids, Jesus, if our founding fathers thought that way, we wouldn't be a country. We almost weren't a country. Wrong decision. Last election, we were on our way to being a dictatorship. So, thank God we're not. Thank God we're here. We can tell you the truth. I mean, we'd be here telling you the truth no matter what, except if they got reelected, they'd probably come in and pull me out. I have no doubt about that. I mean, they're trying to put me in jail, for the rest of my life. That case in Georgia is still there. The case in Arizona is still there. Although the judge today in Arizona, I don't like to report on my own cases, so I'll have Ted report on it tomorrow. But he gave the government like 40 days, basically to explain why the case shouldn't be dismissed, and why the case wasn't just a political prosecution. I got to tell you, I was so shocked that a judge did that this morning when I found out about it. I mean, it began the process of restoring my faith in the system that I love so much. I don't even know who the judge is. I mean, he's the judge in my case. I don't know who he is. I don't know his background. I think it's a male. I'm not even sure. I think my lawyer said. I think I remember his name, but I don't know anything else about him, except that's the right decision. Of course it was politically motivated. All we did is act as lawyers, and the people who acted as electors were definitely substitute electors. They weren't pretending to be anything else, just like Nixon and Kennedy did. I mean, that case, that part of the case has been dismissed in Georgia. The one in Georgia is still there. I don't get it. I don't get how that case isn't thrown out. But let's see what happens. And then you can listen to my show and you won't be listening to an indicted felon. The president, of course, is a convicted and indicted felon. He's indicted still in Georgia. It's ridiculous. And I do wear it as a badge of honor. You do know that, right? I just really, really I felt proud of myself when I went and reported in Georgia. And then, of course, I got a standing ovation from the prisoners, so I don't know what the hell that meant. You were shocked about that too, weren't you, Ted?
I don't know if I was shocked.
Remember the crowd outside?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Now, what are we talking
was
Georgia or Arizona here? Arizona, we were able to get in and out pretty stealth.
Arizona, by the
stealthily.
time of Arizona, it was already kind of wearing out.
Right.
In fact, I'm pretty sure they didn't indict Trump in Arizona because they figured they'd get him elected by acclamation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Might just cancel the election, give them the keys of the White House. Yeah.
So they had us chumps. They could indict all us chumps.
Yeah.
That was pretty mild, Arizona. But Georgia, they took it very seriously.
You're right.
We
they
went
did.
to one of the worst prisons in America that's being run by the federal government. They put the place where we were going to get photographed and fingerprinted. That includes the now president of the United States. After you had to walk through 2 big prison cells. I'm sure they don't usually do that. I think they thought that the prisoners were going to frighten us. Well, my God, I've had more experience with prisoners than Fannie Ho could even dream of.
Right.
I used to be in charge of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, jackass. And I didn't know then what a hoe she was because they were yelling out the worst things about her. And I thought they were doing it just to be malicious. Now I think it might have been true.
Right.
But they were cheering me, and they were asking me when Trump was going to come. He was coming the next day. The first group that did it, I was shocked. I didn't know how to respond. I've never had prisoners cheer for me before. I used to, whenever I'd go to Rikers Island, I used to get booed. Or when I was Associate Attorney General, I go to Atlanta or something, they even would throw things at me.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, I'm being applauded by prisoners. Now, it is true. A lot of them said they were from New York. A couple of them were yelling out for the Yankees. Then there was a second group after the first group. And then when we left, I do have to admit, I went like this, and I was listening to what they were saying about her. I thought at that time it was just malicious. And then very shortly thereafter, one of our lawyers got, one of that female lawyer who gets great credit came up with the information about the affair between Fannie the Hoe and her boyfriend, who I could never understand what the hell he was doing with the case in the first place. He questioned me in the grand jury for 3 to 4 hours, and I had to question myself, basically. I didn't know what the hell he was doing. And then after it, I was invited to her office for a little social gathering because she admired all that I did as a prosecutor. And then she indicted me and tried to put me in jail for 22 years. What an experience. Wow. Well, let's hope we're going to get through all that. I just can't believe that case in Georgia. The case in Georgia doesn't even need a legal reason to throw it out. It stinks. The case stinks. She stinks. Her boyfriend stinks. The whole damn Fulton County stinks. It's corrupt as hell. Why don't you start straightening yourself out by throwing that case out and stop imitating the corrupt Democrat Party of New York, okay? Because you're doing a good job of it, and maybe you're worse. Well, tomorrow we'll be back. We'll be back at 7 on X and on Lindell
TV.
And then we'll be here on X and every
Instagram, Facebook,
every
YouTube,
social,
Rumble,
just about every one.
Soon to be Truth. If we can figure out
I
how
think
to
you
do the
can get
live.
us on Truth through Rumble.
Is that what they told you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll figure that out, and we'll see everybody tomorrow night.
Okay. And pray for the people of Israel. Maybe it's coming to an end. I understand, and I didn't have a chance to report on it, but we will tomorrow, that more is going on behind the scenes with Ukraine than you realize. So there might be a chance of a breakthrough there, and I'll tell you what I think it might be, although not yet sure. And I tell you, I just really enjoyed Trump getting cheered. I got to admit, little things like this sometimes get you, and you feel small, but I really enjoyed Trump getting cheered and Taylor Swift getting booed. Did she deserve getting booed? Yes, she did. Putting her nose in something she doesn't know anything about. God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able